Hi, everyone. You are in for a treat today. I'm joined by Olympian Steve Brown, who competed in the 2000 Games. This is part one of our conversation, and it's one that you won't want to miss. Have a listen.
Let's start by telling the listeners about your journey because sport has been such an important component of your life, and it's taken you now to this stage where you're about to graduate with your PhD after doing a dissertation on sport.
Right.
So, I mean, you're coming full circle here to give us the rundown, start to finish. I know we could talk about that for hours, but give me the summary.
I'll give the summary. So growing up, Washington, D.C., 70s, 80s. So I was just like any other typical kid. We played the sport in season. So in the fall, we played pickup football. And in the winter, we played basketball behind someone's home. And in the spring, I was actually afraid to play baseball, afraid of getting hit. So eventually that turned into track and field. So my first organized sport was football for an actual team. And the guys in the neighborhood had to talk me into going out for full tackle football. I was 10 years old and I was scared to death. I didn't want to go out there. I didn't want to get hit. But they convinced me to go out there. And I was a decent athlete in my neighborhood. I don't know if you're familiar with what we affectionately call the DMV, which is Washington, D.C., Northern Maryland, and Southern Virginia. So that DMV is right. And there's a ton of talent that has come out of that area in all different sports. Caleb Williams, for example, went to my high school, right? Quarterback now is Chicago Bears. So tried out with the football team, made it. My first organized team after that was play a little basketball in some Catholic leagues and things like that. There are a lot of parochial schools in Washington, D.C. But my first track team, organized team, was a summer track, and I was 12 years old. Went to Gonzaga College High School, Jesuit High School, a few blocks down from the nation's capital. All boys school, again, tons of talent. My father didn't allow me to play football in the fall of ninth grade. I had to establish myself as a student first. So I'm a proud. I played left bench on our ninth grade basketball team. Very proud and very excited about that role. Somebody had to watch the water. So and the next year I was, JV football, but didn't really play much. Started running track my sophomore year for the school. And I wasn't fast enough to run the 1 or the 2. He said I wasn't strong enough to run the 4 or the 8. So he put me in the hurdles. I was like, dude, nobody ever runs the hurdles. I literally failed every other race, literally that 10th grade year. I didn't play varsity football until my senior year. Again, talent in front of me. And then inevitably, I realized over time you'll improve on things. And so in the hurdles, let me back up. In 100 and 200, you might have 40 or 50 kids. In the hurdles, you'll have like 15. I remember one time I got third place and there were 3 people in the race, but I scored.
Yeah. They make you feel good, don't they?
Everybody contributes to something. I was also young going into school. I was interestingly enough, January 6th baby. And so my senior year is when I finally got to play football, organized football. Our quarterback was a 2-time All-American. So I got noticed by a few schools. Wake Forest was the only Division I school. And then there were Delaware, Boston, just 3 other schools. And that was the only attention I received in terms of an athletic scholarship or college recruitment, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to run track. I didn't want to play football, again, because they hit too hard. But because of my age, I was 17 when I graduated. I didn't turn 18 till my second semester at Wake Forest. So I chose Wake Forest. When I walked on campus the fall of my freshman year, I hated it. Why? Because I was a man and the coaches didn't know it. And I was a man and the girls didn't know it. and school was a little harder. So if there was a transfer portal, I was going to be in it, right? Not that I was going to have a whole bunch of attention, right? And I was waiting for my father to talk me out of it. He was like, I'm behind you 100% of whatever decision you make. And I was like, for real? He's like, yeah. And I know we received some scholarship dollars, but if we need to find some somewhere else, we'll find a way to get that done. And I was like, for real? But then the advice he gave me, I still use to this day. He said, who's to say the next place is going to be better? Right.
That's
So
great.
it
Grass
really,
is greener, is it?
no, and it really shifted my mindset because I was blaming everyone else for my circumstances, and I had a lot more control over my destiny, if you will. So thankfully was redshirted that first year. The next 4 years, I started every single game except one. I was on a full athletic scholarship to play football, but I actually walked on to the track team and became their first track All-American in school history. And
What event?
110-meter high hurdles. And was fortunate again to graduate with a math degree. There was only 2 math majors on the football team.
Wow.
So the other math major, he's a vice provost at Appalachian State.
No way.
He always says half the math majors on the football team were Olympians. So, you're right.
For your listeners, Steve was an Olympian. I'm sure he's getting to that too. So just
we get into that. We get into that. So I tried out with the Chicago Bears as a free agent. I literally got the snot knocked out of me by Hall of Fame linebacker Mike Singletary. True story, in practice.
Wow.
Played a few preseason games, was released, and went up to Canada and played for the Hamilton Tiger Cats for that remainder of the season in 91, but was cut in 92. So to give you the history of the Olympics was I tried out in 88. I was a 2-time U.S. junior national champion and was 4th in the world at 18 and 2nd in the world at 19.
It's incredible.
So 88, I tried out for the Olympic team and didn't get out of the first round. 92, I was released from Canada, so we weren't prepared for the trials in 92. So my mother and I went as spectators. When I was at Wake Forest had a total of 4 hurdles. And I don't know if you're familiar with an indoor race, but you couldn't even run an indoor race. Indoor race is typically 5 hurdles. So
yeah.
So I would go over those 4 hurdles like there was no tomorrow. But I was fortunate to be introduced to Dr. Leroy Walker. He was North Carolina Central president emeritus. He coached the first Olympic gold medalist, back-to-back gold medalist, Lee Calhoun, in 1956 and 1960. So he was in Durham. I would drive 2 hours to Durham on my own time to train with him. And then he put me in touch with his protege, who became my Olympic coach, Charles Foster. He was Olympian in 76, former world record holder in the hurdles. So now I'm going 2 hours to Chapel Hill to watch film with him.
Wow.
And so I don't know I try not to use too many curse words on here, but I remember watching film with him because here I am, a competing athlete within the same conference. And one day I asked him, he ended up actually coaching Alan Johnson for a hot minute before Curtis Fry came in after. So I said, Coach, can I ask you a question? He's like, yeah. I said, are you concerned with me beating your guys? He's like, no, I train my guys to kick your ass, so I'm not worried about you. Excuse my French. But he said, you asked for help, but if I could help you, I would, and which he did. So Dr. Walker became the first African-American president of the U.S. Olympic Committee. He oversaw a lot of the Tanya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan issue, for example. So they relocated here as the organizing committee for the Olympic Games in 92. And I followed Coach Foster down here in 93. When I was released in 92, I became a full-time high school math teacher. And I said, I'm going to devote the next 4 years to train to make the 96 team. So fast forward, I started teaching at the Lovett School.
Okay.
Which was a private K through 12. Then it was pre-K through 12 school here in Atlanta and Buckhead.
Were you teaching math?
I was an upper school math teacher. A Wake Forest alum, had his two daughters at Lovett. Rick Decker was his name. And so that's how I got introduced to Lovett. So again, another true story. I share this on all of my admission tours. One of the claim to fames of Lovett was that we denied Dr. King's oldest son, Martin III. If you were to visit the Center for Civil and Human Rights down in the Olympic Park, the King papers are on display throughout the year on the first floor. And so you would see the letter from the Lovett School in 1963 expressing this is our first Negro application, and we don't want to serve as a test case. And Dr. King and Coretta Scott King wrote back, we don't want to serve as a test case. We just want a parochial school for our children. But that was a very volatile time for all schools, right?
Absolutely.
All the offspring for civil rights leaders. And so a lot of people don't realize that a lot of civil rights children had to be removed from both public and private schools because they couldn't ensure their safety, right? So there are a lot of folks today like, you did not Dr. King's son. It's like, it was a different time. It was no one wanted to be in the room to make that decision, right?
Right.
Fast forward, so when I arrived in 1993, I'm the only Black male teacher in the entire school, pre-K through 12.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. 93.
Right. So I wasn't the first, but for some reason I was the only teacher that year.
Okay.
Male teacher. So my ignorance and my prejudices, I was raised not by my parents, but I was raised by my peers. Folks who look like you don't look at the people who look like me. Right. Yeah. And throughout my life, there were times where that myth was dispelled. At Gonzaga, it was dispelled. At Wake Forest, and I get to love it. The first day I'm there, everybody welcomes me with open arms. I'm a football coach. I'm there prior to school starting. The football coaches welcome me. Then the guys and the trainers, the young ladies, everybody welcomed me with open arms. So my ignorance and my prejudices had to change, right? Going into the Olympic year, I wasn't even ranked in the top 50 in the US, right? So I tried out in 88, wasn't ready in 92. It's 95. There's nothing on paper that says I'm going to make the Olympic team. So I was going to quit again, right? So I applied to business schools, got into Duke, University of Chicago, had a 4 ride to Cornell, and I was going to give up my dream. And the head of school at the Lovett School at the time was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Jim Hendricks. And he said, what do you think about Lovett sponsoring your efforts? Right? So teaching 5 classes was a full-time load. They cut me back to 3, still paid me a full-time salary so I could train more. Got me a membership at the local athletic club. It's a private club called the Vinings Club near the school. Had fundraising activities, had Steve Brown t-shirts made. I have one hanging in my office. They had an aluminum can drive in the middle school. The lower school had a penny drive. They raised over $2,000 in pennies. And over $35,000 within 2 weeks. Had an all-school assembly. Everybody had my image on their back.
No way.
They brought my mother down from Washington, D.C. My father passed away my senior year at Wake Forest. And I'm saying to myself during the assembly, again, excuse my French, they don't realize I suck. There's no way I'm going to make the Olympic team. But that training and even the training leading up to that point was just what I needed and that extra help. So we go into the first round of the Olympic trials. I win my heat. I run the 4th fastest time in the world, 10th fastest time in American history. And 2 rounds later, we get to the finals. Top 4 make the semifinals. Top 4 make the finals. I make it to the finals. And of 8 of us in the finals, Olympic gold medalists, from 88 and 84, Roger Kingdom, Olympic silver medalist, Tony Dees, Olympic bronze medalist, Jack Pierce, number 1 hurdler in the world, Alan Johnson, number 2 hurdler in the world, Mark Creer, and then local math teacher and 2 other people.
Local math teacher.
They take the top 3 to make the Olympic team. I'm 4th by 7/100ths of a second.
Oh.
3 days later, I'm in Paris. I finished that year ranked number 10 in the world. And so you go through these conversations. The next year, now I feel like I can compete with these folks. I get, I don't know if you've ever heard of this rule. It's a long rule, and it's an old rule, but it's sometimes enforced. So the next year, I know I can compete on this level. I know I can compete overseas. My confidence is high. I get to the first round, second round. We get to the semifinals. Back then, they would give you 2 false starts. I got a false start charge to a second false start. They say lane 4, you have to leave the track. I said, sir, I'm not leaving the track. He said, no, you've been DQ'd. You have to leave the track now. You have to call security. I said, you're going to have to call security because I'm not leaving. And I ended up eventually having to step off the track. If it wasn't for my coach, I'd still be out there. But they said that I didn't get charged with a false start, but I reacted quicker than what was humanly possible.
Oh.
So there's a rule now that's been in effect for about three or 4 decades, where if you react to the gun with the electrodes to the starter within 1/1000th, then that's considered a false start. Same thing happened with Devin Allen in the Olympic trials, and maybe 2 Olympic trials ago, and he was 0.999, and they
wow.
And it was devastating because he was going to medal that year or maybe even win the gold. His father had passed away. The trials were held at University of Oregon where he was. I mean, it was a devastating technicality, if you will.
Uh-huh.
So I had a buddy of mine said, have you ever thought about representing Trinidad where your father's from? And I said, well, you know, the U.S. team is the most difficult team to make. And that's the team. He was like, shut up. Who cares how you get there, right? In 96, when I was ranked number 10 in the world, out of the top 10 of us, 6 of us were from the United States. And so looked into it, was granted dual citizenship in 1998, got a silver medal in the Commonwealth Games in Malaysia, and then represented Trinidad in the Olympic Games in 2000 in Sydney, Australia. And so to walk in Olympic Stadium under my father's colors was extremely powerful. And that was 4 Olympiads from 88, 92, 96, 2000. I mean, close to 16 years. It was about 13 years of Jack's. But when I almost quit in 96, from 96 to 2000, I competed in over 60 cities in 25 different countries. So all that to say, so many people supported me in that endeavor, right? And so many people who I didn't expect to support me in that endeavor did, right? And the reason why I share the Lovett story and so many other stories like that is that Lovett didn't have to do that for my dream, right? And I tell people, be careful not to have your blinders on or your prejudices on, if you will, because that could blind you or block you from the blessings that may come forth, right?
A great lesson, yeah.
So it's a so that was a long journey, and then returned to business school at Duke. Thankfully, they let me back in, and the goal was to go to Wall Street and make all the money I didn't make as a teacher. Summer after 9/11, I did my internship at Merrill Lynch, which was right next to Ground Zero. So I used to walk by Ground Zero every day. Very powerful, and made a lot of money, but my heart wasn't in that world, and so returned to Lovett in 2005. Our daughter was born in 2006, and she and I are graduating this year together. She from high school, because she's been a lifer there, and me from the doctoral program at University of Pennsylvania. So special time. Funny thing is, there's individuals in her class where I've taught or coached their parent.
Wow.
In the 90s when I first got there. So Um, yeah, folks in Washington, D.C., Gonzaga, Wake Forest, love it. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people that have been on this journey with me. And so now it's time to give back to other individuals who have similar aspirations, right? So, yeah, long story to a short question.
And we've got lots more questions to ask you, so we'll definitely get to those in part 2 of our conversation with coach, Olympian, teacher, father, soon to be doctor, Steve Brown's interview.